Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump just exposed all of China's hyper-predatory global trade practices, and now China is absolutely freaking out. You see, while the media has spent years talking about trade tariffs, what they've conveniently left out is that tariffs are really only the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how China has been ripping off not just America, but the entire world. In truth, for decades now, China has been waging economic warfare against the entire globe, not with bombs or tanks, but with currency manipulation, product dumping, value added taxes, and flat out theft. And so, folks, let's start with the big one: currency manipulation. For decades now, China has been intentionally devaluing its own currency so that its exports become artificially cheaper and competitive in the global market. And what's the result? United States goods can't even compete. American workers lose jobs and factories close. Entire towns have collapsed. And then you've got value added taxes, or VATs. These are effectively hidden tariffs. Foreign countries refund their own exporters but slap VAT charges on United States products. It's a sneaky way of taxing American products while subsidizing their own. It's rigged, plain and simple. And then what about product dumping? China floods the United States with cheap, often CCP subsidized goods, everything from steel to electronics, at prices below the cost of production, meaning that they're willing to lose money in the short term if it means putting American manufacturers out of business. But folks, if you really want to talk about economic cheating, look no further than all of the intellectual property theft that China has been engaging in for decades. So far, China has already stolen over $1 trillion worth of American intellectual property. Whether that's military technology, patented medicines, or software, this is theft on a scale that the world has never seen before. And then on top of all of that, there's transshipping, a shady little trick where Chinese goods get relabeled and shipped through third world countries just so they can dodge our tariffs. It's deceitful, and it's been happening for years. So when President Trump issued his Liberation Day tariffs, it wasn't just about economics. It was about telling China, we see what you're doing, and now it needs to stop. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you know what happened next? World leaders started picking up their phones. Business executives from around the world started making trips to Washington, D.C. to beg President Trump for tariff exemptions. And while Trump has paused tariffs for pretty much every other country, China, they're still on the hook. Because China, as you all know, is the world's #1 economic criminal. And so now that they can't flood our markets with garbage products anymore, their economy is imploding. Factories in China are shutting down. Workers in China are going on strike. Their manufacturing sector is in absolute disarray. And by the way, that's no accident. It's because President Trump cut off their oxygen supply, the American consumer. The reality is that without the American consumer, China doesn't have anyone to sell all of their cheap, unnecessary crap to anymore. Now, as I'm sure you've all heard, the globalists right now are absolutely losing their minds. Tariffs are bad for business. Tariffs are going to hurt the markets. In reality, tariffs protect American jobs. Tariffs protect American steel, American technology, American farmers, and the American dream. And ladies and gentlemen, let's make one thing very clear. There actually is one thing all of these manufacturers can do in order to avoid President Trump's tariffs altogether. Build your factories in America, hire American workers, problem solved. But instead of doing that, countries like China would rather use tariffs, subsidies, regulations, and red tape to keep American goods out of their markets while flooding ours with theirs. And so really, President Trump's entire tariff strategy is finally forcing China to play fair. He's demanding true reciprocity. If you want to sell your products to American consumers, then American businesses need to have the same access to your markets. American businesses need to be treated fairly in your markets. And guess what? President Trump's tariff plan is working. Nations are cutting deals. Tariffs are dropping around the world. Manufacturing is, in fact, coming back to the United States, and the global balance of power is starting to tilt away from Beijing and back to the United States of America. Meanwhile, check this out. Because China is freaking out so much right now, they just issued a global warning threatening any country that is considering aligning with the United States in this ongoing trade war. China to the world. Make a deal with the United States and you will regret it. China just issued the diplomatic version of "you better not be talking to my ex." After President Trump's team started pushing countries to trade less with China in exchange for U.S. tariff breaks, Beijing clapped back hard, warning anyone even thinking about cozying up to America that they'd face resolute and reciprocal punishment. Translation: pick Washington and we'll make your economy cry. They're calling it abuse, they're dragging it to the United Nations, and they're threatening countermeasures like a global supervillain with trade stats. Meanwhile, Southeast Asian countries are caught in the middle, too broke to pick sides and too exposed to hide. Nobody wants this smoke, but China's making it very clear, if you're friends with the United States, you are no friend of ours. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is what economic desperation looks like on the global scale. China knows they are losing this trade war, they are losing their grip. Because here's the truth, the world is waking up to all of China's predatory economic antics. They're realizing that America is back. We are done getting played by the CCP. And thanks to President Trump, we finally have a leader that has the guts to say, we don't owe you anything. If you want access to our markets, you need to play by our rules. Now that President Trump is back in office, long gone are the days where countries like China get to rip off the American people with complete and total impunity. And as you can see right now, China is absolutely freaking out. Now that President Trump has cut them off from the American market, their economy is on the brink of complete and total collapse. Like we said, their manufacturing sector is literally imploding right now, and Chinese workers are on the brink of marching through the streets demanding that their leaders make a deal with President Trump. Because as it would turn out, President Trump actually knows what he's doing, and he's doing it. That is why we voted for him to finally put America first. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we wrap up with today's video, I want to say that I've actually gone ahead and made a community Facebook page where I'll be posting additional news and updates as it relates to all of this. So hey, if you guys use Facebook, check out the pinned comment down below and give that page a follow. But everyone, that is going to be a wrap for today's video, so please go down below and drop a comment. Let me know what you think about all of this. Please like the video while you're down there. Also, please consider subscribing to the channel if you guys enjoy the daily news updates. It really does help a ton. Thank you all very much for tuning in today, and of course, as always, stay safe.